It's like close enough to my microphone.
Starting off great. Well done.
We did it.
We did it. Okay. Before I hit the magic record button, you were talking about margarita jello. Ruth McCormick, friend of the show, Ruth McCormick. Can you tell me about this margarita jello?
So a cool thing that's happening in quarantine is that I found some unflavored jello in my cabinet. So I've just been making jello shots. This is my life now. It's fine. It's normal. So I was like very like Pinteresting and like hollowed out some limes to make the jello shots inside the limes.
Shut up.
But well, okay, but that was a huge pain in the ass. So I made like 2 of those and now they're gone. So now I just have like a half full Tupperware of jello. I also didn't bring a utensil into the room I'm recording this in. So I will just be like slurping this tequila jello.
Mouth sounds. We love it.
Yeah.
We
so
all do it.
That's like for that. It's fine.
Mouth sounds. Slurping jello. Somebody just went, nope, can't. Gotta go.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being this person.
No, that's amazing.
It's really good though. So I will make them again someday when we're not quarantined and we can share them.
Please do. I got a whole bunch of limes so that I could make margaritas today. And then it was really gloomy. So instead I'm drinking an Oberon, which is also not a gloomy beverage, but what can you do?
Oberon brings you more joy, though, than
Oberon
most
does,
things.
but you know what? A margarita brings me joy too. Although I guess I didn't really, I have to work. We're recording on a Tuesday. Hi, it's Tuesday. We're recording on a Tuesday, which means I have to work tonight. I have a recap assignment, so I probably shouldn't be margarita drunk. It's a very specific kind of drunk. There's tequila drunk, and then there's specifically margarita drunk, which is different from a general tequila. It's like a heightened tequila drunk.
Because you get the sugar drunk too. It's good.
Yeah. Plus you feel all festive and like you're prepared to make bad choices. Mm-hmm. And there's like your blood pressure is affected because of the sodium from the salt rim. Not really.
It's a perfect drink.
There's a lot to this. Goodness.
Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast, an Outlander podcast. I'm Allison.
I'm Ruth.
Yeah, you are. And that's Janine.
Myself there.
Hey. Julie is out this week. So friend of the show, Ruth McCormick, who has been on before, but is probably best known in Drunkcast land for briefly, quickly, spiritedly writing the most perfect limerick in the history of limericks at Murtaugh's funeral, is joining us, which is great to talk about Journeycake. Although I guess nobody says it in a Scottish accent, so it's Journeycake. The past's answer to Journeycake, which I'm excited about. You picked a good one to come on, Ruth.
I'm excited.
I dig this episode.
Thoughts.
Julie also digs this episode. And she also shared some thoughts with me, so we'll get to those. Janine, I'm curious, based just on the title and like our general chatter around it, or any chatter you've seen in the Slack, what is your impression of this episode?
That it's quite festive. That Journey sounds like Johnny, so I thought of Journeycake immediately, and that this is not last episode.
That is correct. It is not the last episode, nor is it the next episode. Never mind. Sorry. Hi, I've already had a drink of wine. Apparently I'm drunk. I'm honored by the fact that this gets an actual Janine drink.
Yeah. Well, I spent I should do a Janine's Corner about this, but I spent the weekend doing a Mars city state competition. Like we did a workshop to discuss what a Mars city would look like with 1 million people. And so I'm fucking tired of fucking Zoom right now. I can tell you that. Well, so I'm looking forward to drinking with you.
Luckily, we're not Zooming.
Yeah, I'm not awkwardly looking at myself.
Yeah, that's the worst part
we're doing this.
Zoom.
It's horrible.
I was trying to do Marco Polo with a few friends, but now every time I get on it, I just look at my neck and I'm like, I don't want to look at my neck anymore.
That's very specific. That's how you know it's true.
That's what I've I've globbed onto is my stupid neck. Good grief.
I know what you mean. I've been hyper focused on my 2 quarantine zits, who I've named Lilo and Stitch. So I just sort of stare at them. I did a socially distanced walk with Julie the other day, and saw Ruth and Janine both there as well, to stand in the alley behind a friend's house to wish him a happy birthday from 6 feet away. Actually, quite a bit farther than 6 feet away because there were so many of us. So it was just like
we were imposing. I gotta say,
it was like site specific theater. It was weird. Anyway, while we were walking, Julie was like, "I'll tell you what, from quarantine, my skin's never looked better." And I was like, "Julie, I'd like you to meet Lilo and Stitch." And then I'd like you to shut the hell up. She was like, "No, seriously, my skin, my hair." It's like, yeah.
I did notice that on our last happy hour. Julie's hair has been looking great.
It has been.
Just gotta say.
To that, she would say, "Thank you. It's called not washing it."
Yeah, that's real.
That's what she would say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about Journeycake. We start with and again, I want to say I think this is a very good episode. It is full of booksy stuff, some of which we'll talk about, some of which we won't, because there are some things that are going to come into play later. But I was telling Julie when we were doing the Crowdcast, I had this professor in college who taught theater history, and the capstone theater history class was called Development. And it was this very intense look at the state of contemporary theater. And it just so happened that, actually, no, it wasn't Development, it was Theater 2. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she was out a semester working on something. I don't remember what. And we had a sub who was terrible. She was very, very bad at the job. And so Joan had to come in and sub once. And she came in and was like, "So where are you?" And we were like, "We have no idea. We're not learning anything. Please help." And she taught basically everything that would have happened in the semester up to that point in 1 hour. And at the end of the class, everybody stood up and applauded.
What
it
an
was
experience.
like, I think about it all the time. That's what this episode is like, only it's Diana Gabaldon fitting in all of the stuff that doesn't get, like, all the little cool things that hasn't been mentioned in the show into 1 hour of television and still finding room for like plot and character development. It is a delight.
She wrote this episode?
She wrote this episode. Yeah. They said in the after the show blah blah, let's watch Matthew B. Roberts drink incredibly watered down whiskey and talk about how smart he is, that she wasn't around to break the episode, which means that she wasn't there for when they were talking about what's going to happen in it in terms of the plot and the overall structure of the story. Mm-hmm. So she wasn't there to be like, well, okay, so this and this and this should happen. They just told her, these are the things that are going to be covered in this episode. Here you go. And then she, like I said, and it doesn't feel overcrowded at all, but it's just like, it's like the greatest hits of, and not just of this book. She's just like checking them off the list. All of the things that when we did an in the book session last Saturday, and I was like, I miss the saran wrap. I don't understand why we're not getting the white sow. I want the sex scene with the smells. I want this. I want that. Just being very grumpy about all the things we didn't get.
Stuff.
I got all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It was, if it weren't for the fact that, I don't know, maybe Daphne can time travel. If the show was being produced in like 2 days, then I would have thought that Daphne had listened in, but
according to math, that's not possible. Call back, nerdy joke.
Nice.
No, Janine's corner. It's great.
Janine's corner. The corner of Janine is Janine's corner.
I'm by myself and some mice.
Boom. So,
call me Cinderella. Good God.
Do you have mice?
I do. I have 2 mice. And
I'm sorry, you don't have to say that on the podcast. That's a rude question.
It's okay.
We've talked about it on the podcast.
Oh yeah, because my quarantine experience is me trying to be as optimistic as possible. And right now I have little fucker and brave fucker in my apartment who I thought were dead, but they're not, because I just realized they've been eating my chips. Motherfuckers.
Oh, your chips.
I was so mad. I was so excited about chips and salsa, and then nope, they took them. Sorry. Anyway, I'm very excited that Diana Gabaldon showed up and basically saved the ship.
She did. And I mean, there have obviously been some very good episodes this season. There was at least one that I think is like a top 5, maybe top 10 for sure episode, and some other good things. There have been some great scenes throughout, but what this season has been missing, as noted through various rants over the last couple episodes, is what we have come to call hot pests, which is all of the like little tiny beats that are just about character and time and sense of of place and where the show gets to breathe and where you get to just sort of fall into the world. Like when Claire is traveling the countryside collecting rent and she wanders into the shed full of ladies going, hot pess, Claire, and doing their hot pess thing, right? So we've started calling it hot pess. And this episode is like straight hot pess, like nonstop hot pess. And I was delighted by it. However, we start with something that isn't hot pess, which is a brief montage of Getty Images footage of seasons passing, where it's like, hey, this is winter, and then this is spring, and this is summer, and this is autumn, and then this is 1772. So basically it's like a year has passed, and also here's what year it is now, because no one knows what year it is, what day it is, what month it is. There's a line later in the episode from Ottertooth's journal where he's like, they don't keep track of time in any way that seems familiar to me. I was like, yes, bitch, me too.
So thank you for explaining this, because I missed the montage of the seasons. Like that somehow didn't register for me. And I was just like, how is Marcelly pregnant again? Didn't she just have a baby?
She did, in fact.
This makes sense.
Just have a baby.
Time has passed.
But she's very fertile.
That's true.
And somehow, so this is the quarantine episode where time doesn't matter to anyone, and who knows what day it is.
Yeah, it's like who knows? It's always 5 o'clock, and it's always Friday, and it's also always 8 a.m. on a Monday.
Yeah, last Friday was a year. Tomorrow's 6 years from now.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Who knows? It's quarantine rules. Anyway, it starts with what seems like a nice double date, and Claire and Jamie and Brianna and Roger are on, I assume, Clarence the mule, who never shows up, but I miss him, and their various other horses coming back from somewhere where they bought something. It's unclear. And while they're on this cutesy, they bought peanuts. That's really important. They bought peanuts. While they're on their way back, they smell something in the air, and it's doom, tragedy, and an ominous musical score. Ruth, can you refresh me? Have you read these books?
I read the first book like 15 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And then I haven't read any of the other ones.
Okay. So this will not register for you as a book thing for them finding the family in the woods. What did you think was going on?
So I guess I don't know. I was upset that Jamie, having apparently never seen a horror film, asked his wife and child to split up and check the woods for murderers. Rookie mistake, buddy.
Totally. Is anyone there? Oh, no.
I just feel like, I don't know, if I was burning down cabins and murdering everyone inside, I wouldn't be like, oh, yep, over here. That was weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, as they're wandering around yelling to see if there are any survivors and or murderers, which, maybe I wonder if that will become significant later in the episode. Roger is wandering around, and Richard Rankin, I guess, just didn't feel that he had locked down his season MVP badge yet, and stumbles across, Janine, get ready, a little girl who had been burned alive, and by burned alive I mean was still alive. This is the first note that Julie sent me. Was she wanted me to mention how good she thought the burn makeup and special effects were, and it is really horrifying.
It's really good, and the makeup is great because it's gruesome. It was disgusting.
It's so upsetting. And Jamie and Claire and Brianna are all still like, is anyone there? Hello, we're being unobtrusive in the woods at the scene of a crime. Hello, is anyone there? And Roger is just sort of silently weeping over this little body, and he's trying to hush her. He calls Jamie over, and Jamie offers, he first of all, he shakes his head and is like, no, she's definitely going to die. And he offers to kill her, which is the merciful thing. And Roger says, no, I'll do it. So Jamie says, what does she say? You will go home this night. I don't remember thou goest home this night.
Yeah, and then it's all to where it's all the seasons. It's a really beautiful prayer that I also don't remember very well.
Yeah, but it's very pretty, and Roger is just crying and smothering her with his handkerchief, and it's very sad.
Oh God.
Yeah, and that's how the episode starts. So I know that we set you up, Janine, for a fun romp.
Thanks for that.
But that's how it starts. And there's a lot of other similarly dark stuff in your future. Apologies. But it really is a good episode with a lot of fun stuff in it. It's just that part's not so fun.
I just really need to buckle in on this one, huh?
God, it's really, I feel like I should send you a screenshot. I'm not going to right now, but it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. And Richard Rankin is so fucking good. He's so fucking good. Ruth, who would be your season MVP so far? I shouldn't speak for everyone, but he's just been so fucking good that it's hard for me to think it's anybody else. I'm curious on your opinion though.
Yeah, he's been great.
He really has. He's so good. Even when the writing for Roger is pretty messed up, he's just so fucking good.
He just leans in so hard and does his thing. I keep looking at that photo of him.
Which photo?
That we have. Did we ever share that one?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And then
no, we haven't.
Then
we
maybe
will.
I'll just say I like him.
He's a charmer. It's true. So that is our little cold open, and then we get the theme, which, we end with our customary whisper of "That's a fiery cross," and that will not be the last time that we do that in this episode. Spoiler, Janine. The fiery cross comes back.
It's back.
No.
I don't know if you realize this, but the fiery cross is kind of a big deal.
Oh, good.
Also, credits Buffalo is still there. So the title is Journeycake, which is like Johnnycake. You are correct.
Thank you.
But the title card is the bat suit.
Is it coming back?
Yeah, it's Claire from the neck down in her bat suit with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in her hands, which she unwraps from plastic wrap.
Oh.
And lets the plastic wrap go and then sort of tries to snatch it, and it goes floating off into the distance. It is one of my very favorite passages from the books. I don't know that it's like the earliest effusive in the book section that we ever did on the podcast, but there is an episode where we talk about that passage and how much I love it at length.
I remember it. I remember this.
So it was really like it's so silly to say, but it was a total thrill to see it in the episode, which like obviously Diana was like, excuse me. So 2 seasons ago, you skipped something I think is important. Do you think we could work it in now? Because I'm definitely going to reference it. So why don't we make it the title card? And they were like, yes. Okay, Miss Kebbleton.
I remember when that happened and you were like, and they just let it go. It's plastic.
And it's just the thing that's so great about it is it's like Claire she is taking a breather before she goes to meet Jamie again for the first time in 20 years. And she doesn't know what to do with it really. So she takes this incredibly modern invention, this like miracle of science, and just lets it float off into the fucking wilderness. And it's like it's nothing, which it is, right? Like it's not going to affect anything. No one is going to be like, I think I'll pick this up and try to invent Sarana Wrap 200 years early. Like that's not going to happen. It's just they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? This is weird, and then that's it.
The only thing it does is it threw off microplastic calculations by a century. That's all.
Apparently. Anyway, it's very cool that this is the reference, which obviously connects to Claire talking in this first sequence about how she bought peanuts. Oh, sorry, Janine. She bought peanuts because she hasn't figured out ice cream yet, but there's no way that Jemmy is growing up without peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Damn
so she
right.
bought peanuts to make peanut butter. Hence,
okay, I have a question about the peanut butter situation.
Yes, hit me.
2 questions about the peanut butter situation. First of all, like peanut butter has like an inventor. So Claire's bringing a lot of stuff back to the past, like penicillin, etc. That like, is she just the inventor of peanut butter now?
I guess
like,
so.
You can't just bring peanut butter back.
Well,
and also on British Bake Off, when any of the Brits use peanut butter, everybody loses their mind over this like exotic flavor combination of peanut butter and jelly. So like, would Claire really have been that into it? Or is this like, has she spent enough time in the US?
I assume it's got to be a US thing, right? Like, because Brianna grew up there, so then all the other kids would have PB&J. And I think she's probably mostly nostalgic about it because of Brianna's childhood, and then because Brianna made her those PB&J sandwiches for when she was traveling back through the Stones.
Yeah.
Okay. But peanut butter, let's see, was patented, peanut paste was patented in 1884. So we are well over a century early.
Well, but that just means it was patented. Doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't invented before that. That's the interesting. Oh,
hey, the earliest references to peanut butter can be traced back to the ancient Incas and the Aztecs, who ground roasted peanuts into a paste. However, modern peanut butter, its process of production, and the equipment used to make it can be credited to at least 3 inventors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Including Claire.
Including, well, now 4.
God damn.
I just...
Into it.
It's very charming, but, I think that maybe part of the reason it's good in this episode is because it's yet another thing where Claire is being maybe not a very good time traveler, which becomes important at the end of this episode. So Claire has introduced peanut butter to the American colonies, quite a bit early. And when we rejoin after the saran wrap, that's what they're doing. They're shelling peanuts to make peanut butter, and Claire is reminiscing with Brie about her fateful peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how they sustained her on her journey through the Stones, etc., etc. Meanwhile, in a move designed to explode ovaries everywhere, Ian is playing with Jem, and it's like, catch the necklace? Like, what game were they playing?
I don't know. It's a baby. Babies do whatever they want.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and also he's not such a baby because, again, a year has passed. So this is like the 5th actor they've playing Jem since the show started.
My nieces and nephew, I don't think they learned they basically did whatever the hell they want until they were like 5, and no one's older than 5 right now.
So this is a hugely important scene in the books that I did not really expect to see, that I was hoping we would see, but didn't really expect to see. And Ruth, I'm curious what your take was on it, because I worry that maybe this scene won't translate quite so well to people who haven't actually read the novels. So what was your take on this scene?
So like Ian is playing some sort of like keep away catch game with the necklace with Jemmy, and the necklace is Ottertooth stone. And it starts, and Jemmy like goes to catch it, but he's like, oh, it's hot. And Ian's like, what are you talking about? It's not hot.
You stupid baby.
Yeah,
it's not
babies
hot.
Are so dumb. Just so then like Bree and Claire kind of perk up and they're like, what? So everybody goes over and touches the stone and like, is it hot? Is it not hot? And then so like
hot or not, hot or not.
It's an old timey hot or not. Exactly.
Oh, nice. Is this a Tinder? Who can tell?
Yeah. Who indeed. So basically Claire feels like warm to Claire and Bree and Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jemmy seems to feel like it's really hot. So he has maybe some sort of like heightened situation, but it seems tied to the time travel ability.
Yeah. And as he's handling it, he's like, hot, it's so hot. It's really hot. I'm a baby hot. Then we start to hear this ominous humming, and Jamie can hear it, and Brianna and Roger and Claire can all hear it, and Ian and Jamie cannot. And then the stone breaks. Like it breaks, like a piece of it falls off. This is a thing that I think, this is maybe the thing that I'm worried doesn't translate nearly as well. Because Brianna says something about, well, it got hot enough to break it. In the banks, that scene takes place in Jamie's study, and Jamie is playing with the opal because they're like, hey, kid, grown-ups are talking about something. Here's something shiny. Play with that. And he's like, and then starts playing with the opal. And then they start hearing this noise, and he says, oh, it's hot, and picks it up again, and it splinters. Like little tiny pieces of opal fly, like it shatters like a piece of glass, fly everywhere. Ian gets a cut on his face, and there are these little shiny fragments in all the walls and stuff because the pressure inside the opal was so great that it exploded from the inside when Jemmy was playing with it. which is
Jesus.
scarier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. He didn't lose an eye or anything like that? That scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
Good
So
God.
after this happens, they're all talking about, oh, it's tied. It seems to be tied to travel. And Roger and Brianna look at each other. And Roger says, that's what it means, doesn't it? He can travel because they can all hear it and Jamie and Ian cannot. And Ian gets this look on his face like, motherfuckers. I know something is up. Why won't anyone talk to me? This becomes important later. Moving through my notes. There we go. I'm very bad at being the Julie. Noise. Oh, okay. So then Jem is like, the opal exploded and it's boring. I'm going to go conveniently look out over the pastures. And he looks out over the pastures and sees a whole bunch of horses riding up. And this is the arrival of Browntown.
Browntown? Browntown's a poop joke, isn't it?
The Browns from Brownsville.
Yeah, Brown.
Oh.
Remember? Yeah, Browntown.
Got it.
Yeah, the Browns from Brownsville. Lionel Brown and Richard Brown. And in case you're having a hard time remembering which one is which because they don't use their names very often and also they look kind of a lot alike, Richard Brown is the not as scary but also more intimidating because he's not constantly drunk and also seems to be reasonably intelligent Brown, whereas Lionel Brown is the stinkiest Brown and also the scariest Brown because he seems truly unhinged and is also constantly wasted. Is that an accurate description, Ruth?
I think so.
Okay, so it's Brown and the stinkiest Brown, but it's Richard Brown and Lionel Brown and a whole bunch of people, including some characters that might become important later, including a guy who's wearing like a British military jacket, but like with some skins over it. And he's got a gnarly ponytail and his name is Hodgepile, which to me sounds like a euphemism for defecation.
Yeah, are we making a bunch of poop jokes now? What's going on?
Well, Browntown, we've been using Browntown for a while. That's a Julie Starbird original.
I just don't remember it. My bad.
Browntown, it's Brownsville is what it's actually called, but we called it Browntown because it's Browntown. And then Hodgepile is his real name, that character's real name. And then there's another character whose name we don't learn, but he's Donner and he's significant in the mix, and has long dark hair, and an interesting accent. That's what I'll say. But speaking of interesting accent, Richard Brown's accent is either great or terrible. And I can't tell which, because it's either like he's doing, hey, I've got a vaguely British accent, but also I'm a forerunner to what will become how we understand an American Southern accent, or he's trying to do an American Southern accent badly. And I can't tell which it is.
I don't know. Never mind. I was watching a show called The Last Kingdom, and the main character on that, he has the weirdest accent, but his accent is weird because it's a mix between Nordic or Vikings and Saxon, and so maybe this is some good dialect.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's good dialect.
I like it.
Work. So the Browns from Browntown show up and are like, hey, so Mr. Fraser, remember how you said join our militia and we said sure? Well, since the governor can't take care of his citizens, we're forming a committee of safety, which is a real thing, to protect people. But really it's like, hey, we're about to be a gang. Do you want to join our gang? Jamie's like, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about it. And they are not happy with that response. And at one point, one of them says something about defending us from the savages, at which point Ian is like, excuse me, the fuck you say? What did you say? Let's discuss this, because what you're describing is not what they're talking about the house that got burned down and the little girl and all that horrible stuff. Like, that wasn't Indians. That's not what this is. Watch your mouth. And then there's, tension, I guess you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get rid of Jemmy by having him go sleep in one of the 126 beds while they sort all of this out. And meanwhile, Claire, with her like amazing wound radar spots on the stinkiest Brown, Lionel Brown, that he's got some kind of gnarly wound and that they have to take care of that. And the less stinky Brown is like, yeah, go take care of it because he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to go. So Richard Brown is like, yeah, go take care of that. And then Claire has like an awkward confrontation with the stinkier Brown about how, do you remember, Janine, how during the Alamance, one of the Browns from Browntown shot somebody in the back? Is this ringing any bells?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it's that guy. And he's like, I know what you think of me, Mistress Fraser. You think right. I shot that man in the back, but shouldn't he be able to defend a daughter's honor? Blah, blah, blah. It's a whole bunch of bullshit. And Claire's like, yeah. Whatever, dude. Your wound is healed.
They played this scene like it was written like he's like, oh yeah, I'm just defending my daughter's honor because his daughter fell in love with some dude and he didn't approve. And Claire gets thoughtful like, oh, I guess we defended our daughter's honor against Stephen Bonnet. But like, those aren't the same.
Not even sort of the
same. Come on.
False equivalence. Come on.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's a little bit weird. But Claire is still mostly like, you're a bad dude. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, I am. It's true. So they take off to go back to Browntown. And then it's time for a Claire and Jamie confab. So they're talking about whether or not they think Roger and Brianna are going to go back now that they know Jimmy can travel. And as they're having this cozy heart to heart, Ian shows up and is like, are we going to talk about what just happened? Jamie's like, what? Browntown? I mean, sure, if you want to, but I basically just told them to leave and then they left. He's like, no. Are we going to talk about the weird opal shit?
The weird magic that's happening?
Can we? Because I have told you that I learned to not ask questions, but I have some questions. And that is like a very minor paraphrase of the line. And John Bell is so good in this scene where he's like, I've learned not to ask questions, but I have some questions. And it's just very good.
It's really good.
So basically he's like, you were gone for 20 years and then you just showed up. And then there's the thing with the opal and it exploded. And then there is this journal that I found when I was with the Mohawk and it's from Ottertooth. And he was writing about the stones and this and that. So who or what are you? And Claire's like,
Oops.
And she and Jamie exchange a look. And this is all straight from the book stuff. It's slightly more lighthearted than the book, but it's a pretty faithful, adaptation, unsurprisingly, because it's Diana. But they exchange this look where Jamie's like, you should probably tell him, man. Claire's like, well, I'm from another time. I'm from 200 years in the future. And then Ian looks at her and I'm sorry, fuck me, and looks at her and goes, I knew you were a fairy, Auntie Claire. She's like, no, I'm not a fairy. I'm just weird. I don't know. But she also looks in Ottertooth's journal and is like, oh my God, he wrote in a ballpoint pen. And Ian goes, what's a ballpoint pen? Like that? Mm-hmm. We're not going to explain that one. I'm not totally sure what a ballpoint pen is. I know there's a ball in the point and that it's a pen.
It rolls and allows the ink to go on the ball.
So the ink comes off the ball and is like ink off a ball.
It's ball ink.
But it looks different from a fountain pen, which is what they would have been used to seeing.
Or
and there's also a different type of impression on the paper. So you can press, because you have to press like a ball. Balls like press.
Ball, sometimes it needs a little pressure.
Thank you.
You've got to squeeze a little hard.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, Ruth. Welcome to Podland Podcast now, Litterbuggin.
This is where we give handy jokes. Yay!
Oh,
man.
At one point, Ian turns to Jamie and is like, and you knew this whole time. It's like, well, we didn't think people would understand, so we kept it between ourselves. But Ian is immediately like, did Martha ken? It's like, yes, Martha, he did. R.I.P.
Yeah.
So now Ian is in the know. So there's one more person who knows about the time travel, and it's Ian, who frankly deserves.
He's like, he's suffered. He's in the crew.
He really should know, especially because he got the weirdest of all of the stuff when Claire reemerged, right? Because he found her in that bed and then like had to try to explain things and was like right there when it was all happening. So everybody else had some distance from the immediacy of Claire just randomly showing up in her outfit that was constructed with a sewing machine. You know what I mean? Like, so he had sort of the brunt of all of that knowledge. So I think he deserves.
Is this when he asks if he can go back in time too?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's later.
Nope, that's coming up.
Okay.
So then it's time for another there's a lot of like little road trips in this episode. So Claire and Jamie go on another mini road trip and they show up at the fairy hut, which is the opposite of the Doom Hut, which is where Mercasta boned during the premiere, right?
Yeah, there's like a California king inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they show up and Jamie goes, "You can come out," and out comes Ulysses, man on the run, fugitive at large.
Man on the run.
Yeah. Recent killer of a hobbit, hiding out in the fairy hut, and with good reason, because as he points out, it doesn't matter if Mr. Forbes was trying to kill Jocasta. He is a black guy and Forbes was a white man and he will absolutely die. So he's hiding out.
So he's on the run.
And Jamie brings him some food and some books. He specifically brings Pamela, which is a book. I think it's called Pamela or the Price of Virtue.
I wrote this down.
Ooh.
Pamela or Virtue Rewarded.
There we go. Which is a book that gets discussed in the books. So that's a nice little Easter egg. But they basically are like, here are your supplies while you're hiding out. And it comes out that Ulysses is not actually a slave. He, as soon as Jocasta's husband died, not a particularly nice man, if you'll remember from the flashbacks, Jocasta had, of all people, Mr. Forbes, witness a document of manumission. Is that the term?
Yeah.
I think it is. Saying that he was free and Ulysses chose to stay because he wanted to stay with Jocasta. But he is not a slave. So there's that revelation.
Cool.
Which I think is an invention of the show. I do not remember. Yeah, I don't recall. But he has chosen to stay with Jocasta. So now he goes back into the fairy hut to hide some more. And that is not quite a wrap on Ulysses, but it is the last time we see him in this episode. Hopefully not in the series, but it is totally possible that that's a series wrap on Ulysses too. Mm-hmm. So then we go back to Brianna and Roger. Ruth, have you ever used one of those bed warmers?
I have not.
I want to. Doesn't it look nice?
It seems nice, but it also seems like maybe too hot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like, I guess if you were camping, like if there was a sleeping bag version and it was like September. Mm-hmm. Janine, do you know what I'm talking about with the bed warmers?
I have like a loose, hazy idea of what you're talking about.
It's like, you know, when you go to a movie theater and somebody's sweeping and it's like the dustpan that's all extra enclosed.
Yeah.
It's like that, only it's like a little metal tub that you put coals in and then you stick in your bed to warm it up.
Yeah, that feels like a great way to die.
It does seem like a fire hazard. But Roger is warming up their bed. And this isn't a euphemism. There's no Brianna and Roger boning in this episode. No. And they're talking about going back and also about Jem and his being able to hear the stone, but also that it burned him when everybody else thought it was hot. And Brianna says, oh, you know, it might be proof that he's your biological son, which is also something that's true of the books. But there is, and it seems likely, this is like a very mild spoiler, but it seems likely that this isn't going to happen in the show. But there's a segment in the books in the mix where Jem gets lice. So they have to shave his head. And when they shave his head, they find a birthmark on his scalp. And Roger is like, oh, that's funny. I have a birthmark in the same place. And they're all like, dun, dun, dun. And Roger's like, I know. Why don't you shave my head too? So they shave their heads together. because it's
St. Baldrick's.
yeah, it's like light confirmation, a fundraiser for charity and light confirmation that Roger is Jemmy's biological father.
Okay, this is very reassuring to me because they start talking about Stephen Bonnet at one point, and then they go like, I'll never see his face again, in a way that made me think like, that man is also a time traveler and is just chilling in 1975, like waiting.
Nope, he's real dead.
Okay.
He's
Great.
for sure dead. That's a wrap on Stephen Bonnet. Ed
Real
Spielers,
death.
you were very good. I mean, who knows? Nightmare, maybe. They keep finding ways to bring Tobias Menzies back. God bless them. So who knows? It's possible that they could invent some reason that Ed Spielers would come back, but I doubt it. They condensed 2 books worth of Bonnet story into 1 episode.
Yeah,
so
they really just got him
so
out
I
of there
think
as fast as
they
could.
wanted to dispense with the old Stephen Bonnet.
Oh, that's too bad.
Okay, I was just being paranoid then.
Yeah,
It's like everyone's time traveling secretly.
nope. Although there is.
FOMO kind of thing.
Oh shit, somebody else.
There are other time travelers.
Are they gonna start calling themselves the Travelers and righting wrongs of the past? Maybe quantum leaping it forward and backwards?
They're called, spoiler, they call themselves the Legends of Tomorrow.
Now it all makes sense.
Down the
Allison.
road, they find a time ship called the Wave Rider, and they use it to screw things up for the better.
It's taken me a few years to figure out why you were so into this show, and now I totally get it. It's all united.
You know what, Janine? The reason that you don't understand why I'm so into the show is because you have not seen it. So this is my regular encouragement to all of you to start with skip all of season 1. It is not good. Friend of the show, Scotty Caldwell, can tell you her sister and I both told her skip season 1. She was like, no, I'll start with season 1. And then she was like, why do you watch the show? It's so terrible. We're like, well, because you're watching season 1. It's not good. Read a Wikipedia summary if you must, and start with season 2. It is delightful. It's perfect quarantine viewing. It is so fun and silly and dumb and also secretly smart and wonderful. And there are great fights, and there is at least one person you will develop a massive crush on, especially if you are a bisexual. But no matter what, you will walk away with a big old crush on someone because everybody is attractive and charming and fun and like the best. Watch Legends of Tomorrow.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
You really should. But again,
I really am. This is no
season
joke.
2. Season 2, episode 1.
No, I'll watch.
The other thing you have to do is you have to watch out for when the crossovers happen, because you have to watch the crossovers, even though they won't make a ton of sense to you, which means you're going to have to jump over to other shows.
I mean,
we'll talk about it off mic.
Yeah. Well, yes. I'll do it. I'm doing it. I'll do it. This is peg in the sand. Where were we?
I don't fucking remember.
We were talking about.
Okay. So Roger and Brianna are
Going
talking.
back.
It's their bedpan scene, not bedpan.
Oh God, hot pass.
No, bed warmer, not bedpan. Whoops.
Golden cake.
Journeycake? What? Urinal cake? Same thing.
Gross.
But they're talking about going back, and basically Roger's like, well, first of all, it's not safe here, which fair.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, there's about to be a war, but also you could get a scratch and it get infected, and Claire is the best doctor in the world, but she is using an actual rattlesnake to inject homemade penicillin into your veins. So like it's frontier medicine. So even without the war, it's still not the safest time to be a human. So there's that, but Roger's also like, it's not the life that we were meant to live. And Brianna seems to agree with that. We'll talk about that some more later, because that's a books thing. Anyway, then we jump to hold on, where is Jamie has a visitor. Ruth, who is the visitor?
Lord John Gray.
Yeah.
Coinface himself.
What's going on, Coiny?
We are not Did you just call him Coiny, Janine?
I did.
I like it. I like it.
That's a nickname. It's not coin
A
face.
nickname for a nickname.
Yeah.
Coiny.
Coiny. What's up, Coiny?
Coiny. I like it.
Now he also has like a weird like sitcom. Oh God. Okay.
For the spinoff, the inevitable spinoff, which by the way, we are not going to address the article that came out today saying David Barry was leaving Outlander because it seems like a little dicey to me. So we'll talk about that when there is more information, maybe next week. But hopefully he's not leaving because that would really suck. Because he's very good at his job. And Julie, I mean, that might be it for Julie.
Without him, she's out.
That's a series wrap on Julie.
That might be. That really might be.
Yeah.
Have you ever quit a TV show because a character died?
Actually, I kind of stopped watching not Handmaid. What's the Call the Midwife?
Call the Midwife?
Call the Midwife. I stopped watching that for a few months because when the first main character left, I was like, I just liked her so much.
Understandable.
Yeah. But
what about you, Ruth?
I don't think I've ever stopped watching like directly because someone died, but I did stop watching Grey's Anatomy when Izzy started fucking her ghost boyfriend. That was like a bridge too far for me. So it's kind of because he died.
No, that... You know, Grey's is also my example, and it's not nearly as fun, which is that I quit Grey's when Isaiah Washington yelled a homophobic slur into Tiara Knight's face and then didn't get fired, and then Tiara Knight left the show. But before he left the show, I was like, I'm out. I was already sort of on the fence, and I can't remember whether or not that was before the ghost fucking. Because definitely the ghost fucking was also an impetus to depart.
Oh, gosh.
But this really happened, Janine. We're not making this up.
Yeah,
I mean, Grey's Anatomy is an experience where you basically, like, the craziest things that can happen do happen. Plane hits something? Cool. 2 bombs go off in an airport? Cool. Or airport, hospital, I don't know.
Yeah, there is the Super Bowl episode of Grey's Anatomy is the one where Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights gets...
I watched this one.
Exploded because somebody accidentally shot a World War II era grenade into someone else's stomach.
Yep, I remember that
and
one.
And he's
that
on the bomb
nuts.
squad.
Oh, God.
And Meredith ends up covered in pink mist, and all of the other women like come together to group shower her. It's very weird.
Group shower after the pink shower?
Yeah, they're like,
intense.
Let's get this Coach Taylor off of you. Clear eyes, full carts, can't lose, right? Like, it's very, it's a lot.
When I was watching Grey's Anatomy, I would like to text my friend who was studying to be an orthopedic surgeon, and he would be like, dude, watch Scrubs. That's real. Because he's like, doctors are as crazy and irreverent as they are on Scrubs. He's upset. Anyway, Patty.
Julie, my next Julie note was thanks for the extended Coinface profile shot, which there is a long shot that's like, look at this nose, look at that fucking Parisian nose in that scene. It's a good little scene. So basically Lord John shows up to be like, hey, so I can sort of tell that there's going to be a war. And Jamie's like, I think you're probably right, but I can't say why. And he also has to go back because somebody, I don't know, some lord, somebody at Hellwater, one of the Dunsaneys died, and it's going to mean that now William is going to have to take on his responsibilities. So he has to go learn how to be an earl. So Lord John has to go back to London to teach Willie how to be an earl. But he brought, and he says, hold on. Oh no, wait, that's later. But for the first, this is like David Barry has been listening to the podcast specifically because poor old Lizzie is there. And Jamie's like, hey, Lizzie, will you bring Lord John's baggage up to the guest chamber? And David Barry cocks one eyebrow and goes, guest chamber? He's like, since when do you live in a palace? Like, what? Do you realize the other people on the ridge are starving? Has anybody planted any corn yet? Like, later in this episode, they're digging privies. I'm like, hold on.
This was my question about the privy. Like, now they're digging a privy?
Why now? A year passed. You're saying in that year? It's now? The time is now?
You're just in the woods the whole time?
You need a new, like, did you shit so much that you need a new privy? Because I've never seen a bathroom on the...
They've been pooping in a bucket or
I
a
guess
septic
so.
tank.
I will say one quibble that I have with this season, and it feels like maybe the line when this comes up later is there's a reference to this in the episode, and it feels kind of like low-level shade, like a baby tree from Diana Gabaldon. But in the books, Brianna spends a lot of time using her incredible inventor mind to find a way to bring modern conveniences into the past. She quote unquote invents matches. She builds a kiln underground to heat water with the goal of having the water then run underneath the floorboards in the cabin so that they can have central heating.
Fuck yeah.
She like all kinds. So in here, it's just basically the rattlesnake syringe, but Brianna is constantly inventing things and by inventing, I mean, trying to frontier recreate modern conveniences in the past.
I feel like I would have invented a toilet before I invented like floor heating.
It's pretty complicated though.
I mean, it is. But mostly I just want to know why they were digging a privy that like maybe instead of the wainscoting, they could have dug a toilet.
To be fair, the house is very beautiful. I wrote a note about the peacock color in like the parlor.
Oh yeah. Well, Julie and I had a lengthy conversation about that beautiful color blue when we were on the Crowdcast. It's so pretty. It is beautiful, but people are starving. Mm-hmm. Like
it's like they went on Pinterest and was like, let's just do all these things, and we don't
Frontier
care.
Frontier
Pinterest. Oh God.
It's that, and there are 126 beds. It's just hilarious. It's very funny, but it is beautiful. It's really beautiful. Anyway, Julie was happy about the extended coin face shot. Point being. Also, I meant to mention at one point Roger is wearing a tricorn hat and it looks fucking great. Ottertooth Journal, Pamela, Genetics, Willie Miniature, Guest Chamber. Oh, okay. So then they're all outside doing homesteading of some kind. Laundry, maybe? Are they doing laundry in the river? Also, there's a river. Did we know that they lived on a river?
Carving a new door for the new season?
Probably, maybe. I don't know. But Ian and Brianna, and I've been listening to the audiobook, so I just keep wanting to say Brianna. Ian and Brianna and Claire are all outside doing some kind of chore. And Ian is like, so, Brianna, do you really have to go? Are you sure you have to leave? She's like, yeah, we really do. Because did you know that they haven't even dug a privy yet? Mm-hmm. Like, I really want a toilet. I could really use a toilet, man. Also, there's a war coming. And he's like, well, you don't have to be whatever it is that you are to know that. And then they get into a thorny time travel conversation about whether or not they can change things. And I think this scene is really interesting for a couple of reasons, even before Ian gets into his sort of personal response to it, which we'll talk about for a minute. But Ian compares it to Culloden, where he's like, well, Uncle Jamie told me you tried to stop Charles Stewart and a slaughterer for the Highlands. And Claire's like, well, yes, we did. And it didn't work, but we were able to save some people from Lallybroch. And Brianna says, and what's about to happen is bigger than us. But also, there is no way where the goal, at least in Claire and Brianna's mind, would be to stop the American Revolution, right? Like, and it's interesting because, of course, Ian would think war is bad. Let's stop the war. Makes perfect sense that his response, and this isn't a thing that happens in the books. This is this episode. It makes sense that he would think, well, you tried to stop Culloden. Shouldn't we try to stop this too? People are going to die. But, no one is going to think, I don't think so. Let's let this one, let's just try to keep this under control. Is that something that you took from it, Ruth, or am I super projecting onto that scene? Because I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, no, I took the same thing, and it is interesting. They're like,
yeah, people are gonna die, but also, we should probably let the United States exist, which then, of course, that becomes a more complicated conversation given everything that's going on in the world. But
yeah, now it seems questionable at best.
Yeah. It's interesting. Then Ian is like, well, okay, so if you can't change huge things, what about little things? Like, say, could you change what happens between a man and his wife? And then asks them to take him through the stones with them so he can go back and fix something without going into detail what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's upsetting.
Yeah.
Little John Bell, he was so good.
That sounds like a good... sounds like a good scene, a good philosophical conversation around what could you do, what couldn't you do if it was real.
Well, and Ian is like, you can travel, so you can take me. Claire's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And you can tell he like only sort of believes her. It's distressing.
Yeah.
It's like,
He's so sad.
I can only imagine how frustrating it would be too, to like know that there's something you just can't do. Like it's not even like suddenly you've gotten this kind of perspective that, oh my God, time travel's real. Anything's possible except for me. Nothing is possible for me. That's a hard thing to come to terms with. I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, I mean, there are bigger conversations in terms of like steering and where they can actually go and whatnot. But there's also one really bad green screen shot. But the show's been doing so much better on that this season that I sort of don't want to harp on it. But there's one shot where I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. You had to put that screen in by computer, didn't you? Even the buffalo was more convincing than that.
Another river shot kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was in fact a body of water, so who knows?
It's
It's their weak spot, I guess.
They're
And then they
really
end up in
bad at
that
that.
gorgeous peacock blue room. Ruth, I want to paint my entire apartment that color.
It's so pretty.
It was so pretty. Talk me out of it.
Do it.
I
I
won't.
think it's a great idea.
But maybe I will. You know what? I
I'll bring
really
a mask.
actually
I'll help you paint.
I do. Will you really? Well, no,
Yeah, I will.
From 6 feet apart.
Well, I mean, so let me in. You go to the end. You go to your kitchen, and then I'll start near the bathroom, and then you'll actually go to the middle. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. You're going to go to the middle of the room. I'm going to start your bathroom, and then you'll work towards your kitchen, and then I'll work towards the middle of the room. Boom, 6 feet apart the entire time.
Damn. All right.
I got you.
Cool. Maybe. It's a very pretty color, though. So then Jamie and Lord John have a tete-a-tete. Where one of them is pining and the other one is just being a friend, and they're very nice, and David Barry is very good. But this is when Lord John spills the beans about needing to go back, and he gives Jamie a little miniature of Willie, and says it's going to be hard to leave, and Jamie's like, yes, I guess it's going to be hard to leave your farm, and Lord John is like, yes, there are many things that I will miss when I leave.
Meaningful eye contact.
Yeah. But it's a nice little scene.
It is
and
nice.
The lighting is pretty, and I will miss his happy face. And anyway, so he gets the portrait of Willie. Go Coiny.
Bye, Coiny.
Then we cut to a Claire and Jamie scene. And Janine, do you know what is included in this scene?
Fucking.
I was going to say strong sexual content, but yes, fucking. Some straight Diana Gabaldon fucking too. It's good.
Fuck yeah.
You should have seen when we were watching this live. I was when I figured out that this is the scene that was happening, I was like, oh shit, God bless. This is what it's one of my very favorite sex scenes in the books. It's very specific and fun and like sexy and weird in a very Diana Gabaldon-y kind of way. And when it started, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're actually doing this. And you could see Julie just kept like sitting up straighter and
Like
straighter.
somehow reaching over to her drawer to find her.
She didn't, but she should have. And I don't know what you used to create that sound, Janine.
That was the fan. I went and like put my headphones down because I knew it would take a moment for you to describe this scene, so I could find the fan just so I could.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, to that end, I feel like I need to get another beer. Ruth, I'm going to ask you to set the stage while I do this. Talk about the portraits and like the whole and getting into bed and Claire and the perfume and all that shit. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah.
So Claire is in her shaft right away, so you know it's going to be good.
Good.
But Jamie is like wearing the small glasses that he wears and like looking at a book or some notes or something in bed, and he has the portrait of Willie on like his bedside table, and there's kind of a close up of it. So he's doing that, and they're just like chatting. And she goes and sits at her night table, and she has like a jewelry box and stuff, and she's like puttering around with all her night table things. And then she like sort of turns away from Jamie a little bit and puts on this perfume, like sort of secretly, like it's a fun surprise for Jamie. And it's like, it's very sensual. She dabs it at her like her décolletage, and then her neck and her wrists, and it's like she's getting ready.
This is a book thing specific where Claire puts on perfume. It's a very specific Easter egg where it's like décolletage and behind the ears and then on the wrists, and it's very sexy. To that end, I had a crowler in my fridge from Twisted Hippo. This is going to be a very intense opening. Are you ready? That's a can the size of like a travel mug of coffee.
Gosh.
Is it Plump Ass?
It is not Plump Ass. It is
Too bad.
Goat Party. I can't remember. I think it's a Maybach. I love a Maybach. I think it's a Maybach. Anyway, I do love Plump Ass, but it's not. Ooh, listen to that.
I'm fanning myself in preparation of knowing how hot I'm about to get.
Well,
or are you?
Or are you? So what happens after she's put on that perfume, Ruth?
So like I said, she's turned like slightly away from Jamie, so he like doesn't see her doing the like sex preparations.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then so she turns to like go back to bed, and he's just passed out. He's asleep.
Motherfucker.
I know.
Like in his
horrible.
clothes, on top of the covers.
How do you reverse
fully conked
swap?
out.
I have to reverse swap a fan now.
Oh no, you don't. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Come on, Jamie.
So then we have a little passage of time, right? And
like 2 months, 3 months, a year?
No.
Where are we at?
Like 3 hours.
Okay.
And Jamie is still asleep on top of the covers. And Claire is asleep under the covers, sort of. But she wakes up and she's like, oh, it's so hot. Why am I so hot? And it's
then like
maybe
the chest
this
slips down off one shoulder.
Yep, there's a little
hello.
like
Happy
shaft
birthday.
drooping. And it's unclear whether it's just that it's really hot or she's having a hot flash, or maybe it's both. I think maybe it's a hot flash, but
I thought it was a hot flash.
yeah, but she goes to the window because there are 127 windows, one for every bed.
And no latrine.
And no latrine. She opens the windows and is like, oh, so hot. And the wind is blowing her hair. And she's standing in the open window with like the North Carolina breeze coming through and fanning her hair. And Jamie wakes up and is like, comes over and he kisses her and is like, are you salty? Do you weep, Sassenach? She's like, no, I've been sweating because I'm so hot. So then he decides to apparently play the what are all the things my wife smells like game. I love this scene so much. It's going to sound so weird. And and it's hot enough that I feel kind of awkward attempting to recreate it. But basically he's like, smells like mushrooms, smells like peppercorns.
Smells like garlic.
Garlic. And she's like, well, you knew what we had for dinner. He's like, yeah. Oh, so this is vinegar. Oh, you've been making those pickles. I like those. And at that point, Julie went, me too. Ooh, and then you smell like this and you smell like this and smells good. Blah, 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 right? And he's like smelling all over. And she's like, oh, my
Jesus.
turn. Gunpowder, hay.
Oh, my God.
And just a hint of manure. Very manly. And they're just smelling each other, right? And then he gets to her décolletage. One more time, décolletage. It's a great word. I'm so glad that you, Janine, God bless. Do it one more time. Julia's going to flip her shit.
I like
she's going to be so proud of you.
I love the reload sound. It's like this soft.
It's so good. Thwart.
I am so hot and bothered right now. Oh my God. I'm like holding up a glass of wine.
Dude,
fanning myself.
You haven't even got there yet.
Oh, Jesus.
So he's
sweet
sniffing
baby
all of
Jesus.
her sniffs, right? Like, this smells like the return envelopes, and this smells like baking grease, and this smells like you just cleaned your humidifier. Like all very specific things that he's smelling, and I don't know why those are the things that came to mind, but I'm not gonna investigate that right now.
Are just like, oh,
I did clean my humidifier this week. That's true that I did. Anyway, Patty. So she's smelling him, and they're just like smelling each other and grabbing each other's hair and like rubbing each other's butts, right? And then he gets to her décolletage and he's like, Oh, it's your special perfume. Oh no, you wanted me and I fell asleep. And she goes, you were tired.
Oh.
And then he says, and I cannot believe I didn't think of this joke earlier. He says, you could raise me from the dead for this, which, first of all, sexy. Second,
Yes.
she has. Like, she has actually raised you from the dead for this. So then he picks her up and he sets her on the windowsill.
Oh,
And like
hello.
pushes up her shift and he says, trust me. And then what happens next is what Julie has chosen to call dining al fresco.
Oh, hello.
Where apparently he decides to see if her vagina also smells like she's been making pickles.
Oh, hello.
So she leans back out of the open window and her beautiful hair is blowing in the breeze while she gets, I'm guessing, really fantastic oral sex from her extremely handsome husband. So she's leaning out of it's window 125 of 127. Just enjoying
Perfection.
a nice orgasm while the breeze coats her sweat-covered skin and she
Jesus.
smells her own fancy perfume.
Oh
So
my
this
God.
scene was like very sweet and weird and sexy. I was so worried she was going to fall out the window.
Me too.
sounds
But
Like, I know that's not what was going to happen, but like, come on.
well,
I think
he is very strong and he was bracing her legs.
Okay.
But in your description, even as I'm over here, I was like, don't fucking fall. Oh my God, that's so scary.
I feel like, oh my God, Janine, I'm going to need you the next time you do that to take a little video of yourself doing it so we can send it to Julie. Cause I feel like she deserves visual accompaniment.
She might need to just hear me vamp just a little bit to create a video of myself looking at the mic going, oh my God.
Bravo.
Done.
A+.
You're getting a
Oh,
text
that's
soon.
great. Well, now you're going to have to do a Janine's Corner about fan opening technique.
Well, I'm going to have to do a Gene Corners on a lot of things at this point. Good God.
Good Lord.
I'm so hot and bothered by this.
It's also, I will say, despite the fact, as Ruth says, funny and weird and sexy and great, I was also worried about her falling, but it also made me think about the scene in the pool in Showgirls. Because she's like butterflied backwards. I mean, she's not thrashing, but it also made me think about Showgirls a little bit, just a little. This is followed by a scene that's like that I love so dearly that you know what? In fact, I'm just gonna. Ruth, do you have notes on the next scene?
The next thing I have written down is, oh, this bit with Lizzie is so sad.
Okay. All right. So I'll set up this next bit though, but this is like an in the books greatest hits. This is like a classic. But it has absolutely no purpose, which is why it's a great hot pest scene, right? Like it is hot pest top tier. But it has no purpose in the episode. So I'm very curious on your perspective on this scene. So it's the next morning. Jamie gets up and he's like, he's got splinters in his knees and he's wandering around like, and his back hurts from making sure Claire stayed anchored to the floor while he pleasured her while she floated in space. And he wanders into her surgery and she's looking through her microscope. And basically he's like, Moo, what are you looking at there? And she's like, here, take a look. And then Ruth, you do it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry I made this pause so long.
And then
there's sperms.
There's
They're just
sperms.
wriggling around under the microscope.
oh, hello. Where? Oh, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Where did she get those?
Well, Jamie asked her the same thing.
So where did she get them, Ruth?
What the fuck is
she
that
had them
shit?
inside of her.
What?
Yeah.
How did she say it? It was so funny.
I woke up in custody of them this morning.
Oh my God.
So she basically was like, man, I have this new, because Lord John gave her a new lens for her microscope, right? So she's like, I've got this new microscope lens. What should I look at with it? I know. And then she was like, bloop, like take a little dollop and put it on the microscope slide and was looking at sperm. And the Sam Hewan is so good in this scene. He's looking through the microscope and it's like, when you told me about the germs, I assumed they would have little teeth. I did not expect them to be such broad, mighty, fine swimmers with their aggressive little tails. And it's
he
just
describes them as handsome at one point.
Yeah, he's just talking about how amazing the sperm are. And Katrina also is amazing in this scene. She's just sitting there like literally drinking it's like the Kermit meme, like drinking a cup of tea, being like, yeah, aren't they magnificent? They're so cute, right? They're so powerful. So when she says they're not germs, they're sperms, it's like, do you mean seed? She's like, yes, I do. Whose? She's like, well, who else is yours? Where did you get them? And he sort of looks down like somehow she like sucked them. And she's like, I woke up in custody of them this morning.
That is so ridiculous.
It's the best. It's
great.
Is it great? I was so worried that one is one that people who haven't read the books were not going to be into.
It was weird and out of nowhere, but I loved it. I was like,
this is literally the episode you were hoping for, Allison.
Oh, yeah.
This is everything you're like, where are my fucking weird moments of her being a fucking time travel talking about how stupid and weird everything is?
It's not the weirdest stuff, right? Like we didn't get the weird foot thing, obviously, because that was many episodes ago. And there are some weird things ahead that if they cut them, I'm going to be really mad. But it's all of the stuff that I've been so mad that's been missing, like all of the in-between beats where it's just people living together and sort of experiencing the world together. And it's also, they just don't return to the idea that Claire is in possession of a bunch of knowledge that Jamie has no frame of reference for, but he's incredibly intelligent. So the conversations they have about these things that he just cannot possibly wrap his mind around are always really interesting. And they just keep skipping them. So this one I think was great because he understands what germs are, but has never seen, like it took her, I mean, let's be honest, years to get Jamie on board with the concept of germs. So he understands what germs are, but has never seen them. And he's not looking at germs. He's looking at, and he goes, do you mean seed? It's so good. It's so good. And he's so admiring of his sperm before they know it's his sperm. It's the best.
He's just like, look how great they are. They're very strong.
Bro swimmers. Mighty tails, handsome wee fellows. It's the best. It's so fucking good.
Which I got to say is like, I find that to be a very hot scene in itself where it's just like, hey, by the way, we're these weird, gross human beings and I'm looking at part of you that you put inside of me.
Why, yes. You injected this into my body last evening. I've now dabbed it onto a piece of glass and I'm studying it. I woke up in custody of them this morning.
So fucking weird.
It's the best. It's so good. Which is followed by a scene that is not from the books that I like a lot. So now I can tell you all that Brianna does not find out about Willie for a long time in the books. But here in the show, and I think this is a really good change, Jamie gets this miniature from Lord John and Brianna's about to hightail it back to the future. So he's like, hey, so look at this picture. She goes, oh, who's this? He goes, your brother. And they just have a frank, like refreshingly, a frank, honest conversation. And this is one of my favorite scenes in the episode. And it was one of Julie's too. Julie specifically said, good scenes between Bree and Jamie and Bree and Lizzie, which we'll get to in a little bit. But basically he's like, okay, so I don't really want to talk to you about this, but I figure you should know before you go back to your own time. You have a brother. And she goes, who's his mother, if you don't mind me asking? And he's like, well, I mean, I do, but I want you to know, so I'm going to tell you. She was a daughter of the house when I was imprisoned and I was an indentured servant. And it wasn't a love between us, but it was her choice. And that's all I'll say about that. I was like, oh, that's so fucking good. Because this, by the way, and this is something the show likes to brush over, is the other time that Jamie was raped in his life. Because basically she said, I will tell everyone that you raped me unless you have sex with me, which is rape because you're coercing someone into having sex with you. So
Yeah.
But what he says is, it was her choice, and that's all I'll say. But it's a very good line in his delivery. It was very good. And then he sort of says, well, he doesn't know I'm his father. His father and his mother died when he was born. So Lord John has been his father. And she goes, oh, that's the son he was telling you about. They have this lovely conversation that ends with Jamie being like, listen, you should look him up when you go to the future, because he was an earl. So maybe he'll be easy to find. But also, I just want you to know that, he's my son, even though he doesn't know I exist, and you'll always be my daughter, and you've made my life whole, I think is the line.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Ruth, was there like a particular line or moment in that scene? I guess, did you react as strongly to that scene as Julie and I did?
Yeah, that like, you've made my life whole was definitely like, oh no, oh, you guys.
I'm having an issue, guys, because I keep glancing back to my notes, only in the middle of the page in capital letters, taking up a solid 50% of this page in my notebook. It just says sperms. So I keep glancing back and laughing. Anyway,
I'm having a hard time trying to stay serious with you, because I'm mostly thinking about Claire going, you know what? I got something new I can look at.
Let me grab a Q-tip.
Fucking, here's a glass slide. I'm
just gonna go like, boink,
just scoop them out.
Just scoop them on out. Like it's like you've got one of those conditioners where you have to scoop it out of a round container with two fingers.
Oh gosh.
I actually have one of those right now, because I'm going to use that overtone shit to make my hair green.
Nice.
Yeah, except for now I'm going to be thinking about jism while I'm doing it. Oops.
Yeah. So where are we at in this episode?
We're getting there.
Because this is like, there's so much going on.
There's a matter of love between us. You've made my life whole. Okay, so this is basically their farewell tour. So now Brianna and Roger are wandering through the woods with Fergus and Marsali, who, by the way, is like, now that I have another bairn on the way, because Marsali's pregnant again.
Of course.
She gets knocked up real easy. They obviously do not know. So Roger and Brianna mentioned that they're going to say that Roger got a job in Boston. So it's a very nice scene of them saying goodbye. And Marsley says, what are your parents going to do without you? What am I going to do? You've been with like a sister to me. And they hug each other. It's very nice, but it's a short scene. And then there's this really beautiful shot of Brianna saying goodbye to presumably Fergus and Marsley and their 97 children. And it's like a beautiful shot of her framed in the door. And then we hear Lizzie doing the same thing. And Lizzie's like, oh, she runs up to Brianna and is like, I figure I should probably start saying my goodbyes too. And they're so wonderful. And then Ruth, you said you have notes on the scene. So I'm going to let you talk about this one, because I'm already sort of getting dusty. And this is an invention of the show. The scene does not happen in the books, and it is so fucking good.
All I wrote down was that it was so sad, but it was so sad because Lizzie's like, oh, okay, I guess I should start like saying my goodbyes and getting ready to go. And Bree is like, we can't take you with us. And Lizzie's like, oh, you'll send for me in a few weeks. No problem. And Bree's like, oh, we won't. And it just is like so awkward and sad. And it feels like like Lizzie's finding this out like in that moment. And that's like so sad. And Bree's like, no, I need you to like take care of my parents the way you've taken care of me. And Lizzie's like, but we've been together. We've been through so much. And you're so brave. And it's all, it's so nice. And it's so sad.
It's really lovely.
Is this really happening too?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, is it really happening? She's not going to see her anymore.
No, Bree's going to be in the future.
Yeah, unless they come back for some reason. That's it. I mean, this is a potential really series wrap on Roger and Bree. Yeah.
I'm like waiting. Yeah. I'm waiting. Hold on. Well, I just have to maybe be quiet for a second.
It's very sad. And the actress who plays Lizzie has had very little to do this season. She will, if there's any justice in the world, have more to do next season, including one of the weirdest storylines in the books. Maybe the weirdest storyline in the books. So there is hopefully way more for her in the future. But this scene is so good. She just is so sad and really hurt and confused, and then sort of it's just beautiful. And it's Sophie Skelton is good in this episode, but I think that's her best scene too. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was, yeah, it really got me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful scene.
Oh.
You're the one that saved me. I'm meant to be with you. And it's just, it's great. Also, there's a whole thing where her dad is supposed to be with them. And I cannot remember whether or not they found him in the show because he was also indentured. And they find him, I think, at a gathering, which they skip most of the gathering. So maybe at the end of last season, but I don't think he's around. Her dad is supposed to be around and is not. And it's going to sort of become a problem because he is, I mean, he's not a major character, but he's a big enough character that it should matter that he's not around. It's a little bit weird. So meanwhile, Claire is, doing her work and getting ready to say goodbye. Everybody's getting ready to say goodbye. And then all of a sudden a wagon pulls up. And who is in the wagon but the stinkiest man from Browntown, and his wife, who is clutching her broken wrist to her chest. Yeah, you know where this is going, Janine.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Claire trying to go through the domestic abuse questionnaire, but in her surgery in front of terrifying husband. It is a great showcase for Lauren Lyle's nonverbal acting skills because she makes approximately 200 faces without saying anything, and they're all perfect. Were you watching her at all in this scene, Ruth, or was I weirdly fixated?
No, I'm going to go back and watch it, though.
She's so good. So what, I don't know. What was your takeaway from the scene? What was your impression of it?
What I wrote was send all of these women to the future. like send them somewhere. Oh, because she talks about not wanting to get pregnant. And that's why her husband had been mad at her. And I was like, oh my God, just send them somewhere with the pill. But no, it was Claire tries to, she's like, oh, this could happen from a fall or if someone twisted your wrist, and then sends the terrible husband out to get some whiskey so she can have a private conversation. And it's all Claire does great. And then the wife mentioned, she's like, oh yeah, I read Dr. Rawlings's pamphlet about how to not get pregnant. So I haven't gotten pregnant, and that's why he's pissed.
Yeah, it's upsetting because she is at one point she says it's going to be really hard to do cut the wood and do the cooking with one hand, and Claire and Marcelly are both well, maybe your husband could help. And she looks at them like they're insane. Yeah. And it just sort of gets worse from there. But then she's like, Dr. Rawlings said, and Janine, I don't know if you remember this, but Dr. Rawlings is the person who owned Claire's medical kit.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning of the season, she wrote up little pamphlets to give to people on the ridge being like, Dr. Rawlings recommends. And then Fergus accidentally published one and it was in the newspaper.
Yeah, right? I do remember that. Yeah.
So she's like, Dr. Rawlings says that if you don't lie with your man 2 weeks before you get your courses, you won't get pregnant, which, don't do that. Get a more reliable form of birth control. Claire is doing the best she can, but really get a more reliable form of birth control that doesn't totally work. So, right as Claire is about to be like, well, he comes storming back in. It's like, no whiskey, your husband, blah. And then he is wandering around and looks in a drawer because Claire, for the love of God, is very bad at being a time traveler. So bad. Or a secret medical advice giving doctor pretending to be a man.
What's in this fucking drawer?
The nameplate that says Dr. Rawlings.
Why is that there? Why?
It's clearly visible. Visible. Very obviously she wanted it with her, right? She feels a connection to this person, and that's more clear in the books, but he sees Dr. Rawlings and then leaves.
Listen, there are 127 windows in this place. Get a goddamn safe.
Just unscrew that nameplate. Keep it somewhere else.
Fuck.
Keep it somewhere. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. Man, Billy Boyd isn't even in this episode, but I take that. So he sees the nameplate. Then we get a very brief scene with Ian and Roger, which was one of my very favorite scenes in the episode, where first Roger is like, hey, Ian, will you come with us to the Stones? Because we don't want it to be Jamie and Claire. And he says, wait. He says, well, Brianna's afraid that she won't be able to go through with it if they're there. and somebody needs to bring the horses back. And Ian is like, yeah, okay, I'll come. And then Roger's like, thanks, man. By the way, here, I got a little present for you. And he hands him a piece of paper and Ian opens it. He's like, I cannot take your land. Roger's like, well, then just look after it for me and do what you want with it. Because Ian, and this is an appropriately sized gift that I think Ian is maybe underestimating the things he's done for them, because it's not just that he's been a supportive friend and that he, tried to fight Bonnet and helped rescue Brianna and he's been around. Ian literally was like, hey, so it's sort of my fault that Roger got captured by the Mohawk. So why don't we trade places? I'll give up literally everything in my life so he can go home. That is,
that's like without interest. Without interest, that's what you get.
Yeah. So, this is the land that Roger got from the governor for being hanged. So it's a lot of land. Yeah. So it's a very nice little scene. Then we get another brief Bree and Lord John Grey scene where they talk about William. Lord John mentions that his new manservant is going to England with him, and Brianna's like, your new manservant? And he says, Ulysses.
Hey, yeah.
It's very specifically a Ulysses. I don't know why, but I loved it. So Ulysses is going to going to England with Lord John, which is great. Also, at one point, John looks at her and says, "You really are impossible not to like." And I would like to point out that for a lot of the fandom, that's not true. But I like Sophie Skelton.
It took us a little bit to warm up to her, but we like her a lot.
I did. We like her. Yeah. It's a very nice little scene. Then we also get a really beautiful shot of Brianna looking out the window as Jamie is sitting on a horse with Jem. It's very sweet. Sorry about the racket. Tom is throwing things around the apartment. Hi, Tom.
Hi, everyone.
Tom's first appearance on the podcast is him going, oh, hi, everyone. Anyway, they're watching Jamie with Jem on the horse and sort of hug each other, and they're sad that they're going to be leaving. And then they all sit down for like a last meal, right? And Ruth, what do they eat?
Oh my God, I don't. So Claire serves them the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh.
And Jamie tucks in with a knife and fork.
It's very funny.
It's so funny.
It's like watching somebody eat pizza with a knife and fork, only way more charming. It's so cute. It's really great. It's so hard to describe because you think of it and you're not like, oh, that's adorable. But watching Sam Heughan eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a knife and fork. Aaron, who's Aaron? Janine, I want to be really clear. It's extremely delightful. Also, he says, like, are you sure you're supposed to eat it? You could patch your boot with it. Because peanut butter.
Yeah.
Anyway,
true.
It's very cute. Yeah. So then they take off to go to what the Slack is calling the Cock Rock, because it's a single. It's not the Dick Rocks. It's one. So it's like the Cock Rock.
Wait, a cock rocket is by itself, but a dick rock's in a circle?
Dick Rocks plural, Cock Rock singular.
Oh.
Which really it should be a circle. I'm not sure, because the whole point, this is
there's like
getting
energies and like there's like things associated
very
with this.
wonky, but the books imply that it is not the stones that have the power, that the stones are there to mark the places where this happens.
And so a cock rock is just like, oh,
so
we
it's
found
not,
it
so then it's just
right
a rock.
Here.
It doesn't make any sense. Also, they're supposed to be traveling on like feast days, like Beltane and Samhain, and like, and they're not. It's who cares? But it's a whole thing. So they take off with Ian for their thing, and to the cock rock.
To the cock rock.
Meanwhile, Jamie and Claire are like, oh, the portraits. She drew these. She's so talented. She drew portraits, and they're like sketches of the Gerber baby, which are Jem, on their bed in the cabin. And at one point, Jamie says, maybe she'll finally get to be an engineer, which is both a nice thought because she's going back to the future to do what she wants to do, and that's lovely. But also it feels like Diana Gabaldon being like, excuse me, have you read the books? Because it is totally possible for Brianna to use her intelligence in the past to do all kinds of cool things instead of just constantly being in distress. So she'll finally get to be an engineer. Baby tree. It's a baby tree.
Is it?
I think it's a baby tree. Okay. Diana is, she doesn't hold back when she has a bone to pick with the show. There's
That's
apparently
fair.
a choice they make this season, and I'm not sure which it is, but there's a choice they make this season where apparently her response was, well, on your heads be it. So then Brianna and Roger say goodbye to Ian. They've tied themselves together with Jem with rope. So they're all tied together. They have their 3 gems. 4 gems, because there's gem like Jemmy plus 3 gemstones.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not just gonna like suddenly go, oh, da 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 da.
Pew! No. So they touch the cock rock, and there's like oh God, Brianna says, thank you for everything, Ian. I love you. And he says, I love you, cousin. And they touch the cock rock, and then there's and the noise goes away. And Ian looks up and is like, holy fuck, and walks up to the rock and puts his hands on it, and nothing happens. And John Bell is so good. He's so good. So then all of a sudden we hear a little tiny baby voice say, I woke up. Ruth, I want to know your impression of this scene.
What happened?
Yeah, so Jemmy wakes up. Bree and Roger are like also waking up, but not announcing it because they're adults. And then Jemmy like runs off camera toward something or someone, and Bree and Roger are like, oh no. So it seems like they have landed near, either like seen someone that they were not expecting to see because they're in the wrong time or the wrong place or something. It seems that something is amiss.
Yeah,
but they are not where they or when they once were.
Oh, cock rock ain't the same as a dick rock.
It is clear. Ruth, I totally agree. And this is a change from the books. So I do not know what they see, which is why I wanted to know what you thought. It's
fascinating.
It is clear that something is wrong. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Bow! And I suspect that might actually be a wrap on the season for those two. Like, I think there's a chance we won't see them in the next episode.
But season.
That's a hell of a cliffhanger.
Series.
Not series. I mean, come on. They're the secondary leads. They're definitely coming back.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Mustachio. It's hard to tell sometimes what's going on.
They know exactly what they have, and Richard Rankin and Brianna is one of the. I mean, they're both main characters in the series.
And Brianna needs. I mean, to be frank, I really desire Brianna to get some more time to like really flex her muscles, because she's got some. But
matches.
Oh, anyway.
I liked when she invented the rattlesnake syringe.
It was
I
great.
would like to see her invent other stuff too.
It's just like, I cannot say enough. The whole deal with Brianna in the books is that she's so smart. And here she's just sad all the time. And that's not on Sophie Skelton. It's just, they don't give Brianna anything to do other than have things happen to her and then once invent a syringe. They're like, because I didn't expect to all of a sudden be in book 6. I'm listening to the book 6 audiobook, and I'm in a section right now where Jamie shows up at like a coopersmith. And he's like, I recognize that handwriting. And Brianna has drawn up a rifle that bends in half, which is like a contemporary shotgun, right? Like a bendy, whatever the
breech
fuck.
Loader.
Thank
breech
you.
Loader.
There you go. Yeah. Look at that, Janine. And was just, and Jamie's like, did she ask you to make her this? He's like, no, she was just sharing some ideas. So she just like drew up how to make a better gun and brought it to their local Cooper. It was like, here, this is for you. Which, bad time traveler, but also that's what Brianna's like in the books. Not so much here. Anyway, we gotta keep moving. We're almost done, I promise. So meanwhile, they're digging a
back
privy.
At the ranch.
They're digging a fucking privy. Ruth, I'm so glad you reacted that way, because I was very confused by and there's like banter about digging the privy. At one point, Fergus is like, Voltaire said the perfect is the enemy of the good. And Jamie's like, well, Voltaire never dug a privy. Banter about privies. And then there's an explosion.
What?
Yeah. And then they all look in the direction of the explosion and go, the still.
Is it
So
I was
where
thinking-
Fergus makes all his good whiskey.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let me ask you, Janine, what would
Good
you
shitty
do
whiskey, right?
if you were digging a privy and all of a sudden you realized there had been an explosion where your whiskey was? What would you do?
I would, pee quickly because that's where this should go. And then run to wherever the explosion was to try and put out the fire.
Well, then you, like Jamie, would be fooled by the men from Browntown. So the explosion happens. They all take off for the still. And then Claire and Marsley, who are helping just a random guy who seems very nice, put his shoulder back in joint. Lauren Lyle has maybe my favorite line reading of hers of the whole series, where Claire is like, so you do this and you do that and you should shove it back. And the guy screams, right? She goes, oh, so it's like it's the opposite of when you're jointing a hog.
Oh, damn.
She's not wrong.
She's like, well,
badass.
yes, but we're fixing it. And she's like, okay, I got it. It's great.
I'm fucking like thwopping for that shit. Holy hell,
do it.
dude. Fuck. One more time.
There you go.
Your fucking medical knowledge has got me
It's
hot
the best.
and bothered,
It's
lady.
the best.
Good grief.
Then all of a sudden they hear like some noise from the parlor, and Claire's like, "What the hell?" And she runs out, and then all hell breaks loose. Ruth, what was your impression of this scene?
So a bunch of dudes run in. One dude is wearing like a British like red coat.
That's Hodgepile.
So
sounds
it's like
like
the
poop.
dudes from Browntown come in and like they slap Marsley around a little bit. She continues to be really badass and like grabs a knife and tries to like defend herself. She like shoves her kid under the bed and tells him to hide. So he's just sort of watching this happen. And so she's like trying to stab one of the dudes, but he slaps her and she falls to the ground unconscious.
It's the most brutal punch. It's like shockingly brutal.
And
punches her and she is out. Yeah, she's pregnant. And she's
Fucking
out
shit.
cold. And also Jermaine is under the bed, under one of the 27 beds in the surgery, and is looking out and his mother's unconscious. It's very upsetting. Anyway, Ruth, keep going.
It's really sad. And then they like put a bag over Claire's head and carry her away.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What's going on? This is one episode.
It's a good
What's
question.
happening?
So then Fergus and one or both Beardsleys, I can't remember, and Jamie show back up and the house is all dark. And Jermaine is just standing in the yard. It's very haunting. And this isn't...
It's real creepy.
This is a story from the books. This is specifically a book 6 story, but the way we don't see any of it happen because all of these chapters are from Claire's perspective. So this is an invention of the show and it's very good. So Jermaine is just standing there and Fergus comes running up and is like, Jamais. Pourquoi? Oh, no, I'm out. Well, it is almost dark. Why are you standing here? He's like, Mama won't wake up. I don't know why I went something there. Mama won't wake up. It's like, what? Jamais, what do you mean? Where is your grandmother? And then he whispers in Fergus's ear, the bad man took grandmama.
Oh my God, that's fucking great.
And Fergus looks at Jamie and Jamie gets Sam Hewen is very good. He gets this terrified look on his face and he goes running into the house screaming Claire's name, which somebody in the crowdcast was like, you'd think at this point Jamie would realize that screaming Claire's name was not an effective means of finding her. But he goes looking for it and she's not there. And Fergus runs up to Marsley and is like, she is alive. She is breathing. So Jamie goes, Claire, and takes off running. And then we cut to a shot. And this is a very mustachy shot, but it worked for me. I'm not going to lie.
It worked for me too.
It was suitably epic that it worked for me. He is in his little pants and his blousey blouse, holding a torch, running up a hill, running very fast and like not particularly gracefully, just like trekking up a hill, carrying this torch. And Janine, what do you think he does with the torch when he gets to the top of the hill?
He fucking lights a goddamn fucking fiery goddamn fucking cross
Yes,
to make
he
sure everybody
does.
fucking knows his fucking love of his life is not fucking there. I'm fucking angry about all this.
It's correct. It's Jamie was only going to light the fiery cross when it was time to go to war. But guess
Fucking
what
hell.
time it is, motherfuckers?
Wartime.
It's-
Whop.
you know,
Fuck.
you know, so That's where we leave the episode.
Jesus Christ.
And at this point, I lean over to you and I go, hey, Janine, that's the fiery cross.
Oh my God.
So that was Journeycake, as penned by Diana Gabaldon. Ruth.
There was no Johnny inside of that. Any of that.
No. Ruth.
Fucking.
We'll start with costumes. On a scale of
I feel like we have to just have like a moment of silence for all of that. Good
a commercial featuring this, because Journeycake. So I'm thinking baked goods. A commercial featuring the Pillsbury Doughboy. 2, the most high profile Hallmark Christmas movie of the year, where obviously the protagonist is a baker who falls in love with the person who has a store next door who is also a baker, and he's very handsome and he's French, so it's a patisserie and she's just doing cupcakes, and so then there's a rivalry, but then obviously they fall in love, and then she's like, well, now we'll have a bakery together, but really she's just going to raise your kids. On that scale, where does this episode fall?
Okay. So I'm going to give this The Princess Switch, starring Vanessa Hudgens. Mostly because you talked a lot about Hallmark movies and bakeries. And I actually like the costumes in this a lot. But my concern in The Princess Switch is that to delineate that she's from Chicago, Vanessa Hudgens just wears a baseball cap that says Chicago, not a White Sox hat, not a Cubs hat, not any of our sports teams, just Chicago.
That would
on
never
it. So that's how
happen.
you know. Yeah,
That means she's definitely from Ohio.
Yeah. So my beef with the costumes here was like, did they make some future clothes for Bree and Roger? Was that just not? Because like
They did not.
we saw the Batman suit at the beginning, and Claire went to such great lengths to have like the right outfit that would like meet her needs, but also be period appropriate for when she went back. And then like they're just gonna send Bree out in like she doesn't have a bra. She just has like corsets and
Ruth,
stuff.
I'm so glad that you brought this up, because this is an in the books thing that I wanted to talk about that I was going to leave for when we do the in the books chat, because we've gone over. But in the books, they take longer to prepare to leave. And part of their preparation is, first of all, they make a bunch of future appropriate clothes for Brianna and Roger and Jemmy. And obviously they're still going to look weird, right? Because they're homespun. But
at least like
more
better,
less weird. It's going to be less like, who won Culloden? It's going to be less Claire assaulting just random motorists on the street, because they'll like Brianna will be wearing something that like maybe Roger could get away with what he's wearing, maybe, but Brianna not at all. So that is one thing. The other thing that happens that I think is very important that they're not addressing is that Claire forges a birth certificate for Jem, and this is like
that
a mild spoiler,
pretty important.
but in the books they technically have 2 kids when they go back. Because they go back at the end of book 6 and there's another kid. Also, their motivation for going back is much more heightened. It's not, oh, we figured out Jem can travel, we should probably go. It's like they absolutely have to. It's not a question. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
And there's another kid. Her name is Amanda. I sort of doubt that we will ever meet Amanda, so I don't feel super bad spoiling it for you. But it is a mild spoiler. In the books, they have 2 kids at this point. So Claire forges birth certificates for both kids, so that they have a record of them being born, which seems like it would be useful, because otherwise you just have 2 mystery children. Can you imagine? They just show up in whatever year it would be. I mean, it's been several years, so probably like 1972 or something, right? And you just have a kid.
Can you imagine that conversation when you go to like the place where you get birth certificates? You'd be like, so listen, we've been out in the middle of the woods for a long time.
We've been camping for the last 3 years.
Look like anti-vaxxers.
we made 127 windows on our own. built our own latrine. And we
had
a
his
couple
birth
babies.
certificate, but we left it under one of the 94 beds. And
Yeah, and we just we're ready to come back. And can you just give this to us, please?
yeah. So Ruth, that is a very good point. It bugged me a little bit, and I'm very glad you brought it up. I'm so glad you thought of it because it's so weird. Claire takes so much trouble to make the bat suit, and then Brianna's like, "Well, I don't know. Let's go back to the 70s." Here we go.
And like they showed that suit in the opening sequence. Like you could have just not.
Yeah.
I think, and that's probably why it's like a little jarring too, because they're like they made a point of saying, here's time traveling costuming kind of concepts.
And you know what is occurring to me right now? Brianna has pants. She wears them all the time. Like she has a costume that's like pants and a vest that would look it still would look oldie timesy, but it looks way more contemporary than her gown, her fucking like traveling gown. Yeah. That's Ruth. I'm so glad you asked about that. Okay. So next is the doing it scale. Let's see.
Fucking
Dining
everything.
al fresco. I mean, it is just the one sex scene, but yeah, that's a thwarp. On a scale from the scene in the animated Lady and the Tramp where they push the meatball at each other and then smooch with the spaghetti noodle, dining al fresco, to showgirls in the pool. Where does this fall?
Honestly, this was like straight like Pornhub for me, but I will give this a look who's talking because of the sperm scene.
Oh, A+. Ooh, Ruth, you're good at this game. That's great.
Ooh.
Okay, so the last is the getting up to get a drink scale. So on the low end, let's see. This one is always tricky because there are multiple interpretations of getting up to get a drink, right? Like either, wow, this is incredibly intense, I need a drink, or, oh, I'm so riveted, I can't get a drink. So I leave it up to your interpretation. But on the low end, let's say Ken Burns Baseball, a classic. And on the high end, say you're digging a privy and your whiskey still has just exploded. So you need to sprint toward the whiskey. Where does it fall?
I can't think of an appropriate movie or TV show for this.
That's okay.
Probably like an SVU. It's compelling. I want to keep watching it. But I did pause it because I watched it on my lunch break and Jimmy was making some soup and the soup was ready. So I paused it to go get my soup.
Okay. More important question. What kind of soup and how did it pair with your Jell-O?
It was broccoli cheddar. It was great. I did not eat it with my Jell-O because it was like the middle of the workday and lunch, and I am not at the point yet where I'm eating tequila Jell-O at lunch. But like, give me another month of this, and who knows?
No, I put booze in my coffee this morning. Granted, it was my second cup of coffee, and I don't drink a ton of coffee, so it was like noon. But I did for real put Irish cream in my coffee at noon.
I've been having Bailey's coffee on the weekends. It's great.
This has been the week where I started assessing when is 5 p.m. really.
You know what, Janine? I have more than one flask. Sometime this week, I'm going to fill both my flasks and we are going to take a socially distanced walk around the neighborhood and I'll toss you my flask. One of those flasks.
I have a flask too. Let's just go for this walk and
we're doing it.
I don't even
We're
need
gonna
a
do
flask.
a socially
I'll bring
distanced.
a goddamn fucking screw top bottle of wine. I'll bring some of that. And let's just see each other in person.
I ordered delivery wine yesterday and I was like, Tom, pick a bottle of rosé. And he was like, great, come look. So I'm looking at it and there was one that was called White Girl Rosé. I was like, you know what? I'm susceptible to branding. You have to get that one. I'm just going to embrace it. Anyway, Ruth, thank you so much for guesting. We will need to have you back.
Having me.
You are a delight, unsurprisingly. I don't suppose you happen to have your limerick handy.
God, oh my God.
That might be lost forever to the chat.
Well, then we'll find it. I can revisit. I'll find it. It's a legendary limerick.
But you know, if it just exists in that moment of time, that makes it that much more special.
Yeah,
That
but
was such
it
a
needs to be
wonderful
recorded for
experience.
posterity. It's like Amelia's song. I got a
sounds so good.
I got a stern Slack message from Amelia this week that was like, "Hey, start taking credit for those lyrics." So it was me and
No.
Amelia's song, but still, it's mostly Amelia. It was
Amelia,
it was like a lovely, very friendly friend message being like, "Allison, stop pretending I'm the only one who wrote that song." And it was very sweet of her. However,
Allison,
it was
very
still
nice.
Allison,
mostly
you're
her.
the ghostwriter of all of our creativity.
Ghostwriter. You know what? If I made that joke when Julie was on, precisely, well, Janine still would have laughed, but Julie predates Ghostwriter. So I'm glad it was you, Ruth.
I loved Ghost
Me
Rider.
too. I loved it so much. But you know, there's a remake and I haven't watched it because apparently it's not very good. But also I'm not the
that's
target audience
disappointing.
anymore.
You know, did you ever watch
True.
that weird like movie or show that was like, it was trying to remake Ghost Rider, but it wasn't Ghost Rider. It was like a Cobra Ford movie
No.
where the Cobra turned into a Shelby. It was fucking weird.
What?
I don't know. It was like a snake movie. I don't know. Snakes
know.
are dicks. We're good.
So we want to thank you for listening to the show. I especially want to thank Ruth McCormick for coming and hanging out. It was amazing. I want to say a hearty fuck you to Julie Starman. Just kidding. Just love you, Julie. We'll see you next week. Ruth, you'll have to come on and talk to us about the finale. We'll do whether it's a bonus episode or something. I really want to know. That's okay. Have you seen the video of the little girl singing the song about buttholes?
Oh, hell yeah.
No.
Okay.
What is this?
I will
Text it to me.
put
Text it to
it
me.
somewhere. I will, but it was really want to know that made me start. There's this little girl and she's got a guitar and she's singing a song that goes, "What's inside your butthole? I really want to know. What's inside your butthole? I really want to know." It's the best. It's so good. Anyway,
Poop.
It's great.
Poop. That's inside your bubble.
it's so good. So
And
thank you to
muscles.
Ruth. You'll have to come back and talk to us about the finale. Fuck you to Julie. Go to hell. Nobody cares about you. Just kidding. You, if you like the show, can find us on Twitter at PodlanderCast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/PodlanderCast. You can find us on Patreon, where you can support the show for $1 and get access to some things. If you join at the $3 level, you get access to our amazing Slack, which Ruth is on. Ruth, how do you feel about the Slack?
I love the Slack, although I don't check it as frequently as I would like to.
That is a terrible endorsement. What the fuck is wrong with you?
But it's like it's full of randomness. I didn't realize how many channels that existed. Like,
Oh, there are a
There-
bazillion channels.
like when
There
I
are channels
post
I
things
don't know.
now-
There's a channel that's just like about ghosts that I didn't know
Yeah.
existed until like 4
Well,
days ago.
And I was sharing pictures of Jasper on random, and they were like, "This seems like this should go in this particular channel because this is where we share pets." And then I looked it up. I was like, "Oh no, this is where you share pets. My
Yeah,
bad."
it's the best. It's so cool. Anyway, it's also where you can find our crowdcasts, where you could watch Julie and I watch the episode, which seems like it shouldn't be fun, but really is. It's one of my favorite days of the week, among many other things. That's at patreon.com/podlanderdrunkcast. We want to thank all of our patrons who make it possible for us to do the show because it's not super cheap. But we especially want to thank Dr. J, Zena Perez, Stella Welch, Misty Ojepi, Kayla Reagan, Amanda Newton, Jen Lander Drunklin, Trish McCrary, Lori McGuire, Katie Kirshner, Beth Locke, Maureen McCurden, Maureen, if I said your last name wrong, let me know. Ashley sent me the pronunciation. Oh, Ashley, if I get this wrong, let me know. But I'm going to try Tegason.
Ooh.
Tell me if I did that wrong. Kristen, Rochelle Lefevre, the other Janine, one of my new favorites.
What's up?
John Samoski, Amy Gustafson, Mary the Falling Statue, Tori, Shannon Duffy, Alicia Glynn, Liz Peniston, Philip Nacco, Heather Moore, Amanda Smith, Whitney Harrington, Chrissy Shively, Maria Emma Lofald, Samantha Smith, Jenna Polkowski, Rachel Townsend, Steph Peterson, Tara Lucchino, Catherine Marshall Eastman, Chantel Salters, Mary Lumpkin, Crystal Nanavati, Ann Gibson, Ruth McCormick,
What's up, Ruth?
Hey.
Kara Marlowe, Flourish Root, Friday Payton, Kathleen Moniz, Hi Mom,
Hi.
Heather Robbins, Viv Pickles, aka Laura, and our Slack Den mom, Kiki.
The
Why? Yes. We want to thank you all so much for your support. We will be back next week to talk about the finale. We are also, I'm not saying what we're doing, but we are not going away during what we are calling with Outlander, because Droughtlander is a terrible term. So I can't remember who coined it, but somebody in the Slack said with Outlander, which is what we're going to. So during with Outlander, we are going to stick around. We have our very next project lined up. We will tell you about it at a future time.
We're going to do our best. We've made promises before, Allison. I want to just...
You know what? Quarantine
we're gonna
times.
Kick ass.
During the quarantine, at least, we're going to kill it.
We're fucking motivated.
And you know what,
Ruth?
Ruth doesn't know what we're doing, but Ruth is going to be back for first quarantine project.
Actually,
I
you're
will
going to
come
like
back
this.
for it.
I'm going to tell her what it is once we stop recording.
Okay.
She will be back, among other people. It's going to be the best. It's going to be really cool. Anyway,
we are motivated. This is going to be a good one.
Well, you know what? Frankly, I need social interaction.
I mean, this is why I'm just like, just tell me when you want to go for a walk. I'll buy a bottle of wine and I'll unscrew it and drink it next to you.
You know what? We don't want to get arrested. Put it in a coffee mug or something.
Cops don't do shit up here, man. They don't arrest anybody.
Ruth, ride your bike up here. We'll take a socially distanced walk.
Great.
Cops.
We're going to do that. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.